Live.
Hey, what's going on, guys? And welcome to TheSTiKSLive. As Landon's just butting in there, I don't know if you guys actually heard that, but we are live on another Monday, joined by another very special guest. We obviously have Momo in the building. How are we doing today, this evening?
I'm doing very well. I've had a very stressful day. I won't go into it too much detail, but living in Germany has its downsides sometimes with getting stuff sorted, but all in all, pretty good.
Okay. A lot of prep going on for stage 2?
Yes, a lot of prep.
Okay.
Some good things is I don't have to do all the prep, which is always a good thing. You know, I can do some of the prep, but like there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that is kind of out of my hands.
Yeah.
So
I presume a lot of it's like production and behind the scenes stuff that kind of you get notified about, and then you go ahead with your job.
Yeah, it's kind of like people inform me what to do, and it's like, oh, you need to know this. It's like, okay, now I know it. Thank you very much for telling me that. But they've clearly spent like, I don't know, 2-3 hours doing it, but now I know what it is. So that's all good. I'm excited.
They're probably sitting there like, oh, I'm really excited to tell Momo. I'm really excited. And then they tell you and you're like, yeah, okay. And then they're just like, oh, just amping it up for nothing. But
sometimes it's like that, but sometimes it's the opposite where they think it's not a big deal. It's like, oh, did you know this patch has dropped and this is going to change? I'm like, that changes the whole game. So sometimes it's massive, sometimes it's not, but I'm sure we'll kind of break all that down through the show.
Yeah, precisely. And Landon, how are we this evening? Do you have a good weekend? I mean, I feel like we don't see enough of each other over the weekend. We just like kind of go our separate ways.
We do. We basically depart from each other. Then we kind of like recap like as soon as the show goes live. We're like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, oh, pretty well. No, I've had a pretty good week. Nothing really to write home.
No haircuts, no app changes, no midlife crisis or anything.
Nothing yet, but I am considering buying a motorcycle very shortly.
Oh my god! So if you would like to apply to become a host of TheSTiKSLive, because Landon is imminently going to probably pass. Maybe
we're taking a 3-week trip across the United States.
Oh my God, please.
In spite of certain things. So that's where we're going.
Well, anyway, today we have a very packed show. If you've not been following Twitter, I mean, not following Twitter, following just esports in general on Twitter, I should say. There's been a lot that's happened, a lot of announcements regarding patch notes and stage 2 that we still don't have a schedule for. Please, during the show, please give it to us to try out. But we're joined by Momo because we're going to talk a lot about roster changes and stage 2. We're going to kick things off with the interview with him, followed by talking about obviously roster changes. But before actually the roster changes, I think we're going to announce the giveaway for the Scuf one that Kingdom currently has. It's optional to have it signed as well. If you want it signed by him, he's more than happy to do that. And I believe he's covering shipping as well. So I don't think it matters really where you live, or at least that's what we're going with. So if you live in the middle of it nowhere, we'll somehow get it to you as well. So stay tuned for that as well. Then after the break, we're going to be talking about the patch notes that obviously got released today. A lot of information in that. And then finally talking about the stage 2 preview and about what you can expect going through stage 2 as well. But to kick things off, Momo, what is it like from kind of esports just being a hobby to now it being a full-time job and you moving to Germany, like of all things? I
mean, the first initial thing was, I remember, and I specifically remember kind of if I tell the story of like being asked to do it, and I was like, I'm never going to move to Germany, but you know, I'll see what they're offering me. I'll see what's happening and see what it is. And like weeks went by and it was like, is this actually happening like in COD? I mean, obviously other esports are huge and it's a given, but it got like 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and then I was like telling my parents, like, I think I might move to Germany. They were like, okay then. But the whole transition has been made really smooth, purely by the people involved at ESL, that like all the people behind the scenes that you guys don't know. But it's been probably like the best experience of my life. I'm 24 years old now. I'd not had anything super exciting happen in my life before, so it's not like it's rivaling anything, but it's been crazy and it's been an experience.
Okay, I mean, it's crazy your kind of career in general, because obviously a lot of people will know you in the EU community for being a player. You played with a lot of big names that are in the CWL right now. You then kind of transitioned over to with your brother being a caster, and now it's to a point where you're like, I want to do this. I've set myself, this ambition, and you've in essence achieved kind of a dream that many have.
Yeah, it all happened so soon for me, and I mean, you can call it being modest or whether I deserve it or not, is sometimes I do feel it all kind of happened very quickly. Like my first ever cast was only in February last year, so I've just been casting just over a year now, and I've moved to a different country doing it full time. So it's kind of crazy to think that when other casters have been doing it like 3, 4, 5 years. But I don't really know. I think it's all just kind of happened too quick. I was casting like a little amateur LAN for free, which was fun, and I did that purely out of just enjoyment of it. And then I was just asked to do bigger events, and then I found myself in LA doing COD Champs, and I was like, how is this happening? Like I tried to qualify for COD Champs 3 times and failed as a player. So to find myself there was great.
You qualified for another medium.
Yeah, and Rel always says, like, he always jokes, like, Rel be my brother if you don't know. Like, you tried qualifying for champs with this person, you didn't succeed until you tried with me, is like the team of casters, if you like.
Yeah. I mean, it's quite an honor having 2 casters here because I can kind of pick your brains a little bit. But both of you, what is the one thing that you enjoy most about casting? What's the thing that you kind of get a kick from, the most out of it?
If I go first, the best thing is when you get that match like you've been waiting for.
The big match, the one that everyone's waiting for.
But I think those matches only come because you've got to go through all the others. Because you go through a whole 2-3 day tournament or a 9-week league. If you go like that, and then you're waiting for that one game. Big example is the Optic Rise game that went down to Season 1 finals. It was incredible, but like my heart was racing, and I'm just watching from home in my own apartment. I couldn't believe it. But all in all, I mean, that's what makes it for me. Like those huge games, at those huge tournaments, huge crowds. That's what kind of makes it. I'm going to move this camera over here.
Okay.
I'm getting confused because you're on this screen and that was on. It's good now. So
technical difficulties. Yeah, I'm with you. Landon, same question to you.
Yeah, I mean, kind of what Momo said. I mean, just like the build up to have like a certain matchup. So especially like when you've gone through a tournament, going through a LAN, and you're able to experience kind of like these matchups coming. I think my personal favorite, like it's kind of weird. Like I know I do this a lot, but like I'll be, for example, sitting on a desk or something like just casting, and I'll think there are so many people who are watching this. Like I always just get a kick out of the amount of people who are watching you present something to them, and I just love the idea of being able to provide at least a little bit of an easier time, at least like being able to provide entertainment over something that I love to do. It's just like, so, I don't know. It's like, it's kind of hard to explain, but just know that you're providing entertainment. You're making something more enjoyable to watch. And yet you're watching it along with like the thousands of even times, 100,000 of people who are watching around you. It just, to me, I just love doing that. And obviously like the hype plays, the massive matchups that not always happen, but when they do happen, it's always, a great time. So, but yeah, just like the experience, the atmosphere is always a really fun one for me too.
Yeah. I mean, in these big matches, I don't know if this applies to casters because obviously I'm not a caster, but do you ever get in essence kind of nervous at all? Like sometimes when there is a big matchup, there's a lot of people watching, there's kind of there's little room to muck up at all. Do you ever get like a little bit nervous when you're sitting at the desk, etc.?
I did. Again, my whole kind of it happening so quickly, I found myself in shoes which usually experienced casters do. Like I was at COD Champs, I'd only like casted like technically probably like 10 games before, and I was there with a huge crowd. And I think I was with Fwiz at the time. Wow. And I was just like, how is this happening? I was like, I was sweating, my palms were going, but now and the
palms were sweating.
Yeah, it was like I was starstruck. Fwiz over here, who everyone knows, and I'm just like like a nobody. And it,
just like, hi, I'm just joining you for this.
Yeah, I like had to introduce myself to him before we like did our analysis and stuff. But now with the experience kind of I've gained over the last year and a half, I don't think any time I get nervous. I almost get nervous for the players though, because I know what it's like to be there.
Okay, Landon, same for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I've been casting as long as Momo's has, but I think the events that I have casted at, like the first event, I was like literally scared, not scared out of my mind, but just like the ability to cast like online and at home. I mean, it gets easier after a while. Like, obviously, when you first start casting, it's not an easy thing, but whenever you're at home, it gets a little bit easier. Share the numbers on the stream, but you don't really see that many people. And when you get to LAN, it's like, wow, like those are the actual people who are watching you. It's like it's a weird experience.
And the live crowd as well.
Like, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, it's just like taking a crowd of people, and granted there isn't as many people in the crowd as there are watching online, but just seeing that many faces staring at you and even hearing your voice constantly throughout the entire venue is a little bit scary. But I think once you're involved with it, especially if you know the game, if you're passionate about the game, I think as time goes on, it's just like, and you get so focused in on what's happening, like you have no idea about your surroundings. Like there was one time when I was at UMG, one of the UMG events, the producer came out and was trying to get my attention for like 5 minutes. He literally had to come tap me on the shoulder because I was just like so zoned in, like not paying attention whatsoever. So I think after a while you get so zoned in that it really is, it's like you're just casting at home.
Yeah.
So focused in. But
I mean, your eyes just like fixate on that like 1 or 2 screens was pretty cool. Well, I think it'd be interesting to try casting. Not saying that I'd be any good at it, but
you should do it, Thomas.
One day.
Everyone needs to try it, because one thing that I get a lot is like, oh, I'd love to cast that. You know, it's definitely not as easy as it seems. I would say to everyone, but if you love it and you are passionate about it, then I think it comes a lot easier. But definitely anyone, if just give it a try. Cast over your own games. That's genuinely what I did in preparation for my first ever LAN. I casted over my own games.
Wow, that is in essence kind of an example of how you can kind of start out from grassroots. Well, speaking of casters, what has it been like throughout stage 1 casting with Machine? Obviously, kind of a new face to Call of Duty, although I believe he was kind of emergent back in COD 4 days, but he's come back from casting over at CSGO and stuff with ESL. What has it been like casting with him and kind of, in essence, being the more experienced caster from my perspective, and kind of telling the tricks and trades and stuff, and obviously helping him through his first stage of the CWL?
It was great because we both brought something to the table. In fact, like he did, he played COD on PC, professionally. He was attending iSeries, things like that, and like he'd come top 3, and he knew COD, which was great. So he knew his S&D, like CS kind of his S&D as well. But he had that background knowledge. But for him, he had to pick up all the player names, the team names, who was good, who used what specialist. Whereas me, I just walk into it and I go, oh, it's Millennium, it's Tommy, he does this, he does that. But for him, it's like he's got to learn 80 people or 80, however many it is. But he has honestly taken it so well. And I think the best thing about Machine, which I've learned the most, is he could, even if he has no idea what he's talking about, which 99% of the time he does.
He'll just make it up.
But if something blips him or something kind of confusing, he just doesn't show it. And he's just so kind of talented at going onto the next subject or bringing something else up or whatever it is. But we kind of, when I came to Germany, it was the first time I discovered kind of roles in casting. Other than that, whether it's play-by-play or color, which is kind of the analytical side of things, that's kind of what we did. So he did play-by-play and basically said what he saw. And I did the whole breaking down what we were seeing and things.
So what this meant or what this team is doing to get back in the game and so on and so forth. Exactly.
Yeah. It was, if someone was flanking around, why they've done that. Because he had no idea about hardpoint. He had no idea about things like that. But, he's got a console in the office now. He plays it. We have a few games together as well. He's getting better on console as well. So it's always good to see.
Okay, interesting. Well, I mean, it's going to be even more exciting seeing you two kind of reunite. I know he's been doing some work over CSGO, and then you've been obviously back home in the UK having a bit of a break, a well-deserved break in that as well. Speaking more about Call of Duty now in terms of Black Ops 3 and the new features we've seen, especially within the Codcaster, I wanted to get your kind of opinion on what things you've most enjoyed of what they've brought forward in Black Ops 3, because it seems like last tryout title, we obviously had the Codcaster. This time they're bringing in kind of tools to enable casters to have a better kind of a broader knowledge of what is going on. So what for you in terms of what they brought in has been most exciting?
I think if we cast our minds back to Black Ops 2, you know how everything shrunk, and it was like a mini kind of, I don't know, everything was shrunk. It was horrible. It wasn't horrible, but it's kind of just come on leaps and bounds from there. So I think the fact that they've made it very easy just to kind of, pop up your, I know you guys might not know because you don't do it yourselves, but like you press right trigger, you can change everything, bring X-ray vision on, and you can basically change everything so quickly. And you don't have to kind of mess up what's on stream, if that makes sense. So it's all just on your pad. You can do it, when and if you want to. But I think little things that they're constantly listening to us, which is the best thing, is like on specialists, it shows when each player has their specialist now, when, it goes bright gold, for example. Yeah. But all in all, I think it's kind of it has everything that you need to kind of cast COD and more. Some of the settings I just don't even understand. They're there, which is great, but, I don't use them.
Okay, and Landon, for you, I mean, I know you're a big fan of the specialist. I know we talked about this a lot. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to that?
I mean, not really. I think definitely like, as time goes on, I mean, in every game, it seems like the Codcaster gets better. And we kind of take for granted. It's like, why wasn't that added? It's like, well, I mean, the Concasters not been around for that long. Like it was a gift back at Black Ops 2. We look back at Black Ops 2 and it's like, well, that was great, but it wasn't as good as it is now. And I think a lot of people kind of just assume that the original has to be the best, when in reality, if you compare Black Ops 2 to Black Ops 3, I mean, Black Ops 3 is leagues above that. So I think definitely like little things that they've done. And even when you're like podcasting, for example, this is just me because I like to drive sometimes. And for me to not have to like press and go through a sequence of buttons, like for example, when the specialists were on screen, what you would have to do is go to every single player and check. And for me, I always use my hands a lot. So I'm constantly talking like this, never have my hand actually on the controller. Like I'm literally doing it with one hand. So it's nice to be able to literally call out. It's really nice for viewers at home because you're not switching through every player. People at home aren't having to like look and like see exactly where it is. It's nice to that, little things here and there that don't fill up the screen can really help casters as well as the people at home watch. And I think it was a really good addition. That's just one of the recent ones that happens. And as time goes on, I hope that things do continue to improve. So I'm really happy with it right now, though.
Yeah, definitely. I think each Call of Duty we've seen, in essence, something new brought. Like I think Ghost, it was when we saw the vision where you could see the outlines of different players wherever they were. It was quite good. But yeah, as we go forward, it'll get better and better. I mean, it's crazy that we kind of take a caster for granted now. When there's Black Ops 2, it was like, what is this? We've been blessed. So it's pretty crazy in that aspect. Momo, for you, coming into stage 2, now we're going to talk about this a little bit more when it comes to talking about roster changes and so on and so forth. But especially in Europe, which team are you most excited to kind of watch after the roster changes that we've seen?
I think only one really has been confirmed. Like, I know there's rumors behind everything else, and, you suspect your Millenniums, your Infused are going to stay the same. And, which am I excited to see? Probably, I wouldn't pick one like Millennium or Infused because it is what we've seen already.
Obvious.
The Splice roster with Rated coming in as well, Rated and Bance kind of in one team, I think could be very, very dangerous. But like with the kind of Porky and Vortex were amazing in Splice because obviously that's changed now. But that they were the inexperience in their team. And even though they did so well at Season 1 finals, they've brought in Rated and who's their fourth? Joe? They brought in Joe as well, which was a fantastic player, which I think enables Josh to go to kind of a consistent AR he's going to be the hybrid, the Tommy of the team, if you like. But Spice is my roster to really watch out for, to kind of nip at the heels of Infused and Millennium now.
Okay, we're obviously going to talk about roster changes in a little bit, but are you at all surprised that Splice made changes, considering they came second at playoffs?
I knew if they didn't come second, I wouldn't have been surprised at all. I knew there was kind of controversy within the Splice camp, if you like. Things weren't going right. They were having an awful kind of end to the stage, and I could see it happening. Then we went to Season 1 finals, and it was like they've just done really well. Like they clutched up so many times against so many teams. They found themselves doing so well. I was thinking maybe they'll stick it out and just think, let's work on it. Let's put some time in. But, it was a bit 50-50. I'm surprised they did so with the result they got. But I do think if they just continued, they would have only got kind of worse and worse. I think there was problems within the Splice team. Okay,
interesting. Well, I mean, we'll come on to talk about it, as I said. Just to kind of wrap up your whole experience of stage 1. Obviously, Activision taking a step in through the door and kind of really supporting Call of Duty this year is more than we could have ever wished, a few years back. And obviously, it has come at a detrimental factor in some other aspects. I think it's very noted by players and fans in general. And one of them is obviously the lack of events this year. In terms of your personal opinion, like how would you go about at the moment kind of tackling this, if you will? I know the obvious answer is just give more events.
Yeah.
Is there like a certain way? Because I know obviously with Activision getting involved, there's like so many extra steps now to, basically putting together an event.
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of the biggest kind of cry out from the players. And being kind of an ex-player myself, it's what a player wants. You want to be going to an event every 1 or 2 months, 2 months maximum kind of thing. You want to be doing stuff. And if you lose at one event, you want to be going to the next one and fighting again for it. And with kind of the lack of events, if you would say, this time compared to the last Call of Duties, I fully understand it. But, I mean, Twitter, everyone has it. You're seeing certain things come into play now, and I think it's pretty obvious that I think there is going to be more events. And the one thing that I will say, I don't know to kind of tell you, but they are listening.
Yeah, most definitely.
And I think they've already put in the works of trying to set up more events. Now that may be through other avenues, but that they want to kind of give us more events. But I think that really for them, it's kind of the very beginning. This is the first time we've ever had a pro league, first time we've ever had kind of like a proper structure in the world, I would say, like Europe, NA, and Australia. So they've got to coordinate all events with all, kind of make it even on every single stage, every single continent, if you like. But they're trying to, and from the feedback that I've given them and they've given me back, there should be more coming, which is obviously a good thing.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I think towards the end of the show, we're going to talk about the news regarding MG. I believe they're now stepping in back into kind of the scene in terms of providing offline and online tournaments. I mean, I think we have to put it in the broader perspective. Yes, it's in essence kind of similar to when obviously MLG had this kind of figurehead role, and then obviously they made mistakes along the way, but the main thing is they listened, they learned, and then they went forward in a positive manner. I think I have no doubt that obviously Activision will do the same, and it already seems like they're listening in terms of getting feedback of stage 1, and no doubt stage 2 will be a lot better in terms of kind of countering things that have been problems.
Yeah. And I would just say as well, just don't mean to interrupt, but imagine what happens when it's, if it goes this way, which, the big plan is when it's, I don't know if this is the right terminology, but imagine what it's going to be like in year 5, stage 2.
Yeah,
like,
precisely.
This is like the first year, the first 3 months of kind of COD esports in its new home. So even though COD esports has been going for, say, 7-8 years now, this is almost the start of something new, which hopefully will get bigger, bigger, and bigger, and bigger, and bigger. Yeah. And you honestly, like, I don't know what the growth can be like. You could be seeing, huge things to come, which is kind of the hope for Call of Duty esports.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, we have to remember as well and recognize the fact that Activision and Treyarch have tried to expand out into other regions that we haven't seen in the past, like Asia, for example. There's been Asia Championships going on at the start of the year. I mean, we had an invitational in Australia, for God's sake. That's absolutely huge in terms of, recognizing Call of Duty as an esports and trying to obviously promote it. So I think we're all very excited for the future. I think, I think it's an exciting time, and I'm anticipated to find out, obviously, all the stuff that's going in the background that we'll obviously find out about in due course. But I think we're going to move on to talk about something that I think a lot of people are here for. What is the Scuf giveaway that we are intending to do, thanks to Mr. Kingdom Soldier, who's actually in the chat. Details that you need to know about this is obviously the fact that it's a Scuf 1. It's not like we're getting a Scuf of your choice from Scuf themselves. It's actually Kingdom's current Scuf, because I believe he's transferring over to the PS4 or something. Either way, all you need to know is it's a Scuf 1, obviously for Xbox. The way to enter, hopefully, I think Goal is going to bring this up on screen or tweet the link down below. We're actually using a site called Gleam, which basically you can go onto it and you have basically set instructions. You can do as many as you like, as many as you feel free to do. But basically, each one will give you so many entries into the giveaway. The giveaway started, I think, like an hour ago, and it ends at, I think, 5 Eastern, 10 British summertime on Wednesday. So you've got a good amount of time. Even if you're watching this on the VOD on our YouTube, we wanted to obviously cater for your needs as well, because we know a lot of people can't watch the stream live, and a lot of people actually do watch it afterwards. I think Golly just actually put the link in the description. So basically, go to that link. It should be in the YouTube description as well. Follow it, and you'll basically see a list of different things. It's like Follow the Sticks is Twitter, it's Twitch, us personally, it's whatever you'd like to do, really. There's no obligations, but obviously you have to do at least one of them to be entered in for a chance, and we'll obviously be announcing that on the Wednesday. And I believe it's like all automatic. There's no us fiddling it or anything. On the Wednesday, when the time is up, it'll actually be announced by them themselves. So go ahead and
also, Kingdom has said many times, he's like, you know what, if you guys want me to, like we were saying, like, if you want Kingdom to sign, he's like, I'm going to sign it regardless. So if you want, sign Kingdom Soldier controller, he's doing it. So
yeah. I mean, who knows? In 50 years, that could be worth something. Who knows? But yeah, I think that pretty much is everything you need to know about the giveaway. It's pretty much all on that link. I can see it in the chat, so definitely go check it out. I think all you need to do to actually register, if you will. I think all you need to do is provide an email. So it's not like you're being asked to sign up to a load of crap and you're going to get emails and advertising and all that rubbish. So go ahead and check it out, guys. And obviously we'll be announcing it on Wednesday at 5 Eastern. But we're going to move on to talk about RosterMania. A lot of people want to know, obviously, what's going on. We're going to kick things off with Europe. As Momo rightfully said, there's been a couple of things going on. To talk about the teams that haven't actually made a change, just to kind of clear that up, we've obviously got Millennium and Infused that are completely unchanged. Hyper Games, also the formerly XL, is unchanged as well. Exertus are unchanged, although there's rumors potentially of things happening. Giants, TCM, Vitality are also all unchanged. But where we start getting into the roster changes and the musical chairs, as I like to call it, is with Splice, Epsilon, and LDLC. Now, I want to actually start off by talking about LDLC. Maybe you can factor in quite well into this, Momo, through casting them throughout season 1. It appears that LDLC have, for the most part, just the entire roster's gone and left Xerox. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, I mean, LDLC, it was a bit of a strange one through the kind of the whole of the season 1, stage 1 kind of. It started off so well. They were beating the other French teams. They were kind of making a name for themselves, if you like, of saying, we're beating Vitality, we're beating Pulse. And then with Zyla leaving, for example, that kind of put a bit of a spin on things. But I think kind of just skipping right to the end of the story, they're still here. They deserve the spot. They did really, really well at stage 1 finals and the relegation tournament. But I don't know. It's a roster which I'm very, very unsure of how they're going to perform. I just think in the past, the French in Call of Duty have never done amazing in leagues. They've always kind of turned up on the day, or they've turned up at LAN.
Yeah.
And, it happened again, this time round. I don't know, is that connection? Is that something else? I'm not too sure. Is that just composure? Well, I think they can only get better, really. With LDLC, they were rebuilding. With Zyla going, they rebuilt their whole squad. So I think it's a time for them to only get better and, challenge their French compadres.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, we talked about this last week with the Deserto guys about it's almost like a lot of these French organizations are going more towards, a British squad or a squad that isn't primarily French, what is something that we haven't seen in the past. I mean, like Millennium, for instance, obviously for a long time they had players like Gataga on, and it just seems like, I don't want to say that they've lost faith, but it just seems like they're trying out a different alternative route because their current methods haven't seen success. So potentially, could we see maybe some British players or some other? I mean, obviously we'll talk about Splice dropping Hawkeye and Vortex later, but there's players now available for LDLC to pick up that are potentially outside of France. Could you potentially see them doing that?
I know it's been rumored about Scrapsy's been a huge name, and I think they considered him. But if I was to give my advice to the French or to LDLC, is stay within France. And I would say that purely because you can add a superstar to your roster, but I don't think at the moment there is that superstar. There isn't a Tommy available. I think for them, they just need to rebuild, keep the French kind of, side of things, because communication in game is massive, and you bring one English player in their whole team has to speak another language, and I've seen that crumble so badly. Like, if you bring in any English player, they can only speak English, so the whole of the foreign team, whether it be German, French, Italian, they have to change, they have to slow things down really in game, which is not what you want.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, that I think was a big problem. I think when Tommy was on Vitality, I think it was back in, I can't remember, it's either Ghost or start of AW, where like that language barrier, I mean, you don't think about it when you're from North America, because primarily you've got either North America or Canadian players. Whereas in Europe, it's obviously a case of you've got British speaking players, you've got German, France, Spanish, all sorts. So it's one of those things. I mean, Landon, to get your opinion from being in North America, I mean, what did you make of the changes and just in general from an outsider's perspective of LDLC? I mean, where am I trying to go with this here? What is your opinions on LDLC and potentially what they should do? I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, as far as LDLC goes, I mean, they were one of the French teams. I mean, everyone was looking at, which French squad is really going to dominate. In some cases, I mean, you had Pulse, I mean, you had some other rosters. They were kind of like the middle of the pack team. And LDLC was kind of like, me and you told me, we were kind of discussing this over the season. It's like they were that one team who was not really expected to do like as well, but, they showed some promise here and there. I know even people can kind of bring this up. It wasn't like they had a terrible season. Granted, they went 4-14, but they had some good moments here and there where they looked, even at times, there was like, I think a streak where they won a couple of games in a row and they're looking to be, a dominant, squad in their own region. It was like, these guys actually going to kind of build themselves up. And I think once you are a squad who finished in that bottom four and you are lucky enough to make it through relegation, even from NA, ANZ, or even EU, the fact is you have to take into consideration roster changes in some way. You have to kind of build up what really worked and then work on the things that obviously that you kind of lacked in, whether it's your hard point game, search and destroy game, uplinks and TTFs doesn't really matter. You really have to kind of focus and kind of realize which players are benefiting you the most, whether it's in LDLC's case, whoever it was, and kind of taking into consideration which players were kind of lacking. How can we finish or how can we work on a respawns? A lot of the time, it's teams who are fairly good at search and destroy, but they lack a lot of the respawns. Teams who are pretty good at respawns, a lot of the time lack at search and destroy. It's finding that positive bond. Well, it seems like LDLC didn't have the best, obviously season 4-14 finished, I believe, 11th or something like that, or 9th, in the overall league. That's the only issue is that you have to kind of make sure that you come into next season stronger after, like I said, making it through relegation, which everyone knows it's not a place that you want to be in for any season whatsoever.
Yeah. People are saying in the chat that Epsilon have announced their new roster.
They just did. I read it off.
I don't know if this is if you got it official.
I mean, it's on their website. We'll take their word for it.
So, Reedy, Scraps, and Sunny B, is that confirmed? Yes. Okay, interesting.
Reedy,
why is there's always some sort of roster changes or news during the show, whatever.
It also says that Hockey will be a sub. Just to throw that out.
Oh, really?
That's what it says.
Now, from my perspective, from looking at Hawkey's performance for Splice during Stage 1 finals, that is very surprising. Now, don't get me wrong, Scraps did absolutely phenomenal for Team Tempo. They didn't qualify, but he was clearly the outright kind of MVP of that team. I think a majority of people would agree with that. So that means that TCM are going to make changes because Sunny B's come from TCM. Mm-hmm. Hawkey is being like, what do you make of that moment? Like, that makes no sense to me, Hawkey being a sub. I feel like he should be like a starter.
Reedy and Moose there have basically got, they were still in Epsilon, right? So they've got 2 spots available because Rated and Joe have left them. And I guess they've kind of picked the best of what they can. Sunny B changed TCM. Like, Sunny B was clearly TCM's best player. Scrapsy's had a phenomenal kind of stage 1, if you like. And I think going back when they originally picked Hawkey up, Hawkey was like just this online player which they just took a shot on, and I think they're taking that same shot with Scraps and kind of talent. But it does surprise me. I mean, Hawkey confirmed as a sub. I don't want to 100% confirm, but it probably means that he's not going to be on any other team, which I thought he may be. Again, it was all. I mean, I may know certain things that others don't, but I don't know anything for sure. It is still just things that I've heard on the grapevine. Yeah. Well, I think it's a very dominant squad. Three players who are very, very kind of close to, not close, but I mean, Moose, Sunny, and Scrapsy, they're all from the same location in the UK. So they kind of have that kind of instant chemistry. I think they'll be a team that get on very, very well. Well, they could do some, I mean, Scrapsy and Sunny for Rated and Joe, I think they've got the short end of the stick maybe at the moment, but with chemistry and the way they play, Scrapsy's so young, he could get very, very good very, very quick.
Yeah, most definitely. If anyone that is just joining us, it's just been announced that Epsilon will be picking up Sunny B and Scraps. Obviously, Scraps coming from Team Tempo that didn't qualify. I think LDLC, funny enough, actually beat them in like a Game 7 spectacle. And obviously, Sunny B coming from TCM, which means TCM have obviously got a spot opening. Someone in the chat saying Watson. I don't know if that's confirmed or not. I don't know if Golly, if you can fish it out and kind of figure out, but presumably, like you say, if Hawkey is a sub for this Epsilon roster, then like you say, it must mean that he's not got a chance on any other roster, what in turn probably means that other rosters have probably already sorted themselves out but are yet to announce. So maybe during the show we'll find out some more. Landon, what is your opinion on this roster? Obviously, I know you don't get to watch too much of European Call of Duty action, but like Momo touched on, I mean, Sonny B was such an influential player for TCM. Scraps was by far one of the best players outside of the CWL, joining, Moose and Reedy, two very talented players and, very mature and experienced players, to say the least. What do you make of this roster?
I think the name Moose and Rudy, being an NA fan, at least when you've watched events, has always been like a combination. I mean, there's certain European players that you hear the name of, and you're like, you automatically think like, oh, I know who those guys are. I know their history and stuff. While I'm not able to watch them all the time as much as you guys are, there's still definitely some known names. It was kind of not surprising to me, but coming from like an outside source, like as far as like the splice changes and stuff, I was throughout the whole season, Tommy can vouch for me, I was a major fan of Splice. Before the season started, I was like, I think they're going to place pretty high. Will they beat Millennium? Probably not as far as the standings went, but I was a fan of the Splice guys. And, while they did place very high, it is kind of unfortunate they had to make a roster change. I know a lot of people have a lot of high hopes for players like Hockey as well, who was, incredible throughout the playoffs especially. But I think the decision to bring on, the players that they did bring on, I believe Rated and Joe. I mean, I think it was the end of Advanced Warfare whenever Joe was really getting discovered in some ways, like as more of like a hardcore.
Almost definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and he was like, not like a Cinderella story, but it was like throughout the NA, Advanced Warfare was not a perfect opportunity, but there were so many young players that we saw rise to the ranks. Players like Hugh, players like TJ Halley as well. I think in some ways, Joe was one of those players from the EU who was slowly rising and making his name known. And it's nice to see that he is, progressively getting on different rosters and stuff. And I know Rated, of course, he is a little bit vocal on Twitter on occasion. Combining with Bance and Josh, I think it's going to be a really good lineup. I'm a big fan of Bance. When I get to watch him, I call him the EU Octane because they're both absolutely incredible, and for the most part, younger, not as experienced players, but they definitely do. I like to call them stat sheet stuffers because they do it all. Really, they do it all.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I don't know. Me personally, I find it bizarre that Hawkeye is not a starter. I believe it was Millennium tweeting out saying that they need a sub and they're guaranteed games because I think they're all planning scheduled holiday and stuff throughout the season, but. I don't know. Maybe they've already sorted out sub, and that's why Hawkeye. Maybe we don't know something. Maybe there is going to be an absence of maybe Josh throughout the season. Maybe one of them are going away, and Hawkeye's going to be needed for a few weeks or so. So, one way or another, they know probably best, and Hawkeye's obviously made the best decision for himself. It's just a shame. I just know that. He's a talented player, but then we have to obviously remember that Europe is no longer at a point where there's only a select number of that really talented group of players. It's such a broad range now that sadly some players do have to sit out and don't make the cut, and I think that showed at the relegation tournament for stage 1 most definitely. Other than Epsilon, obviously we touched on it a bit earlier. Splice making changes, a bit of a shock from my point of view because they came second, but. In Splice's mind, is it a case of maybe wanting to better their team because they want to make sure that every time they go up against a Millennium or an Infused that they can, really go toe-to-toe with them and even take them down, Momo?
I think that's the plan. The plan for them, I think I'm not going to say they got lucky at Stage 1 finals. They played incredible, but I think that wouldn't happen every single time. So I think they've tried to strengthen their roster, solidify a top 3 team, and maybe they can take Infused or Millennium on some series, and if they can really build their chemistry quickly, then they could be really, really good. I mean, all 4 of their lineup, Rated and Joe add so much to their team, so I can only see good things for them. I actually think it's a really good move for them, in fact. But it is sad to see Hawkeye and Vortex, who played phenomenal and were those kind of young up-and-coming players, the kind of Cinderella story, if you like.
Yeah, most definitely. I from my perspective, I think it was a case of, looking at the regular season, Splice, I think, lost to XL twice, and they were a bit shaky at times. So it was a case of just maybe wanting to further have that influence online as well as on LAN. And as you rightfully said, I think the pickups they've made, it's just going to add so much to this team. And no disrespect to Vortex and Hawkeye, but having that, additional experience from these players is just going to be kind of interesting to watch and see it develop throughout stage 2. This kind of puts a question in my mind of where is Vortex going? Because out of all these roster changes, Vortex is the one player that hasn't been mentioned in terms of where he's going. Obviously, I don't know if Watson is confirmed to go to TCM. At the same time, there's Vortex out there, and there's still players that obviously didn't make it from relegation, etc. So, where could you potentially see him going?
There was a lot of rumors that that Hawkeye and Vortex would be going to Exertus.
Okay.
And Watson will be joining Epsilon. However, this Epsilon roster just basically throws all those rumors away. And I mean, Vortex again, I think he will find himself on a team. He's very talented. Watson again, that guy is so talented. But he if he can find a team and go through a whole season, he will just get better and better and better. But I honestly I sit back and think the Splice roster's finished now. The Epsilon roster is Millennium infused. Are TCM gonna actually come out of this with two great new players? Because yes,
essentially, yeah.
They have to keep two, so they have to keep two of the original roster. Are they gonna bring in someone like Watson? Will they snatch up someone like Vortex? They could technically get, with this RosterMania, they could even get better themselves.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, I think TCM are definitely looking at this in a very good situation. Yes, they've obviously lost Sonny B, who was very influential to their team, but now they have the opportunity with these players. I mean, what's to say that tomorrow we find out that Hawkeye is no longer a sub and is actually being picked up? There's nothing against that.
Exactly, yeah.
At the same time, obviously, I would expect most of the roster changes, especially to come in the next hour, because it's getting quite late over here in the UK. Tomorrow is the stage 2 start, and I mean, you don't want to be sitting there with half your team missing, thinking, "Are we going to have to forfeit week 1?" Because that'd be the worst start. I mean, coming back to a point you made, I mean, what do LDLC do if they've only got one player? I mean, surely they are forced to, because as you said, the ruling is that you have to keep two players from the team that you qualified with or went into the stage with. So with that being said, potentially we could see on the cards the roster being bought out or something on the
I mean, in terms of being bought out or kind of someone taking over, I'm not too sure of kind of the logistics behind all of that and how it works and if it's allowed or not. But of course, you need a full team like that. Yeah. That's a given. And because what they'll do, I'm not sure. At this time, I'm casting. I'm in the office at 2 getting ready for this, so I have a team ready.
Yeah, precisely. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting there scratching your head like, have we got a game? Have we not got a game? I mean,
he's playing again?
Either way, the way I look at it is, I mean, potentially if, say, these 3 players from LDC that have left formalize and make a roster and under an organization, potentially LDLC can then go, hey, well, obviously, you've kind of taken our players. We'll sell you the spot. We'll make a little bit of an earner. And then obviously you'll have a league spot potentially. But there's lots of options going around. I know there was rumors about Fab as well, picking up Scraps, but obviously that's been crushed with Scraps going over to Epsilon. So yeah, there's a lot that's going around, and we'll bring it back up when stuff does get announced, because I'm 100% convinced that there's more stuff that's going to be announced during the show. So definitely stay tuned. But on the flip side, in North America, we've also seen a lot of changes. I'm going to throw it over to Landon because over the last week, there has been just like a snowstorm of roster changes happening. I don't know where you want to start off.
Yeah, I mean, I actually DM'd you, Tommy. I was hoping that I actually tweeted out on Twitter really quickly.
Okay, I've just seen it, yeah.
What I want to do is, if you guys want to check out my tweet, not trying to throw my Twitter out there, I was trying to get for the TheSTiKSLive. For some reason, it wouldn't let me tweet it out, so not shutting out my Twitter or anything like that. But if you'd like to respond to
I'll
that
link it in the chat.
Yeah, and then all you have to do is just ask a question at a time. Is going to be going through there. We're going to be checking and maybe even answering some questions that you guys have, and you can even put them in the chat as well. We'll be looking. So as far as the NA goes, there's a lot of still unanswered questions that still have yet to be announced yet, but some for sure changes that we have seen is Complexity. Were we live when Complexity announced, or did that happen right after the show was over?
Right after the show.
The show was over. So I'll go and recap everyone if you haven't been keeping up to date with RosterMania. Essentially, what has happened in the NA side of things, I know we just covered EU, is essentially that Complexity decided to drop Parasite, who was obviously obviously on Complexity, and they decided to pick up Gunjar. There was a lot of speculation, people asking, is TK still at team? Why would he leave TK? And essentially, in some ways, at least from the NA, if you're not on a league team, you're essentially a free agent. I mean, if any players from TK, CLG, Cloud9 Eclipse, any of those guys who were incredibly close, who are talented players, if they get an opportunity, they're going to take it. So in a sense, everyone on TK was still on TK, but still able to be free agents. So Gunjar accepts that spot. That left Parasite to be a free agent for the time. For Envious, everyone's was major questions. Was Envious going to make a change? They were kind of, in some people's opinions, going to be the team, the callus of what would start all this RosterMania. They weren't the first thing, but they definitely made their case. They ended up dropping both TP and Aches, and in case picked up Apathy from Team Liquid and obviously John from Luminosity Gaming. Definitely, at least in Envious's opinion, they want to kind of get a little bit of the animosity that issues that were kind of arising in the roster with those two between Aches and Slasher, the amount of arguments that we've seen, even, and this is known, knowledge, of course, JCap kind of calling out Aches and saying, I think you might have been even throwing matches because of how frustrated we were about this and how, you haven't really been performing. We even saw the mid-season switch between having Havoc sub in and stuff for Aches. So, I mean, there was a number of different issues that were kind of arising with the Envious roster, and it seems that they've kind of finalized those out and have added both Apathy and John, who are an incredible slayers, an incredible slaying duo for the sub game as well, who are going to be added onto that team next. And these aren't exactly official, so to say. It's kind of hard to if an organization
has got the intel.
If an organization hasn't tweeted out, it's I don't know if I necessarily consider it to be exactly.
It's unofficial. It's
unofficial.
Yeah.
So essentially, what has happened, because we haven't seen an announcement from Luminosity, it was rumored, and it's basically true, that Spacely has been released from Luminosity Gaming. That was known a long time ago. I'm just trying to kind of catch everyone up here. So after that happened, we did see some changes with DT. So, okay, I want everyone to kind of hold on here because this is going to be a little bit of a long speech. Have it on,
I'm ready.
I'm gonna go to the toilet. I'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay.
Exactly. So DT unofficially, I already messed it up. DT unofficially dropped both Cinder and Diabolic. Diabolic was, and his plan was, and everyone knows this, his plan was to get on Envious. Envious decided between both John and Diabolic who they wanted. They chose John. Diabolic's like, oh, well, crap. So Diabolic's off of the DT team as well as Cinder is. DT unofficially pick up Spacely and Parasite. Spacely, who was a free agent, obviously dropped from Luminosity Gaming, and also Parasite, who was a free agent from Complexity, was replaced by Gunjar. There were some arguments that arose between the DT team. I'm sure if you go on competitive Reddit, you'll be able to find some arguments that did arise with the DT lineup. And Parasite, second day of scrimming, he's off the team. No longer going to be on that roster anymore. Unofficially.
There's a lot of unofficials here. There's a lot of
unofficially released from DT. And then also, Spacely tweets out, I believe it was last night or even early this morning, said that he's officially asked to be left. And he officially kind of asked the DT team if he could kind of take a leave of absence and even leave that team. So he's no longer on DT. And it seems that Diabolic has tweeted out that he's now back on DT. So it essentially, DT release both Diabolic and Cinder. They pick up Parasite and Spacely. They drop Parasite and Spacely. And they pick back up Cinder and Diabolic in a matter of about 3 or 4 days. So that is what's happened with the Dream Team roster, for those who are a little bit curious. There are rumors about Luminosity Gaming. I know I'm talking for a long time. I apologize. But Luminosity Gaming, they've been scrimming with players known as Assault and Study for the longest time until they realized that they had 3 ARs on the exact same team who all played with the Scythe primarily. Then they release Assault, not as a release him, but don't really play with him as much. And they decided to scrim up with TP, which has been going on for the last couple of days. So that's rumored that has not been officially, drawn out yet. There are still some questions with the H2K. We haven't really heard too much about them. There are rumors of that team kind of splitting up as well. And we're also kind of waiting to hear what some rumors about King Poppy as to what organization is going to pick them up as well. And that has been it for all of the speculation / official roster changes as of yet. And I know we'll obviously be answering some questions and talking about some stuff regarding certain teams, but yes, that's what's been going on for the last week.
I feel like you just planned that speech and you just nailed it.
I have it all on a piece of paper. I wrote it ahead of time. I have half of this paper is written with
round of applause. Right.
Thank you.
Questions from the tweet you tweeted. I just want to pick up one because it kind of spirals us into talking about Envy that a lot of people obviously want to know about. Kingdom asked. Now I'm referring.
My phone was lighting up
now. People were like, "Oh, ask Kingdom's question," yet they didn't realize that he asked 20 billion. And I'm presuming I'm not asking the why are these EU gingers about hashtag America. We're not talking about that one. I presume we're talking about who will be the in-game leader of Envy.
Right. There's a lot of rumors, not really rumors, but it's just kind of a question. In VSU, you have some big not personalities on that team, but you do have a number of different guys who kind of take that role. In my opinion, it's got to be the captain. It's got to be Mr. Kaplan. And it's been a big question with this Envious roster. And I've even talked with the quality manager Tasmo, and he said the biggest issue with Envious over not the years, but in the past couple of titles is that none of the guys really like to hang out with each other. Out of game, they have no chemistry whatsoever with one another. None of them really like to hang out with each other. And that's all due to, at least in my opinion, it's all due to the fact of what a team captain presents, because in some ways, if you're the team captain, it's your job to make sure the chemistry out of game, in game is unlocked. Meaning, if you're at events, you're hanging out with each other, you're talking strategies before a game starts. You're warming up, you're doing all this stuff. And I think in some ways, it's got to be JCap. I think John's a great guy. I think Apathy's a great guy in Slashers as well. But those guys, to me, especially Apathy and John, do a really good job at kind of absorbing leadership. I'm not really sure if Apathy could really take that role on as of yet. But I think JCap, he's been playing since what? Call of Duty 4, Modern Warfare 2, especially in Black Ops.
He created Call of Duty. He's just been around for so long, it feels like.
JCap knows what it is. But no, I think it's going to be a combination of a couple of players. I think Apathy in some ways will kind of help JCap along the way with certain things, but that's going to be the major question. I think it's going to be a major thing as the MVS roster does move on is, yeah, they have the slaying power. They have the talent to do so. They have the talent to be one of the top slaying teams in the game and compete with even the top rosters in the game right now, Optic and even Rise. But the whole thing is, your chemistry. How does that work together? Because granted, you can slay, but if you do slay the other team, that means someone's going to be getting the objective, someone's going to be talking about their game type, someone's going to be working in search and destroy, and that'll be incredibly evident as time does go on. So just in my opinion, though, I think the MVS team definitely needs to work something out along with that. I think it'll definitely be JCav and Apathy who primarily take on that role for sure. So
okay. Momo, from being a past player, like how important is it from your own experience for like having that in-game leading, having that person that dictates kind of play and kind of it's just that kind of authoritative role, if you will?
I think, like Lando said, that it's just as important out of game as in game. And I will say, of the however many teams I was on, I was always the leader of the team. And I don't know how that came about. I really don't know how I became this kind of leader.
You were just like, you stamped your foot down, nope.
I think I was just the oldest, to be honest. Which I was getting on a bit, hence why I kind of hung up the controller. But I think I was just probably the most mature. But in every team that I was in, I'd been in the community the longest. So I think it's just so important that you get on with each other because
that chemistry factor.
Yeah, the littlest of things, like say you're in game and for example, Envy, they're slaying out their hearts, but they make a mistake. Someone doesn't pull the flag when they should do. That just, you can get sent on tilt. Something should have happened. Then little things, you're not calling out as much. And I think it really takes an in-game leader to regroup everyone and just kind of get things going again. When people have been a bit sluggish or, not doing something they should be, it is just getting that. But I will always say this, and people talk about it, there shouldn't just be like 3 people and then one above. Like the in-game leader is on the same level as the others. If someone has something to say, they all need to be basically comfortable with saying it, because I used to team, with really quiet people, and they would just kind of do what they want to do, but not say it. They were so talented, but they wouldn't kind of go, guys, we should be doing this. They just kind of did their own thing. They did amazing, and they just kind of hoped it worked. But I think it's important, but also in certain aspects not important, which kind of makes no sense, but hopefully does a little bit.
I mean, I don't know how else to word this, but for like a naive fan, they will see this arguing on stream potentially. They'll see this kind of dispute between a team, and they'll instantly think, "Oh, this roster doesn't work. They need to change it." They're squabbling, but from a wider perspective, and I'm sure you've witnessed this as being a player, it's evident that most of the time this argument is more constructive criticism. It's constructively looking at a situation. And yes, they may argue, but that's because at the end of the day, they're all passionate. They all have an end goal of succeeding. And I'm sure you've, as I say, like experienced that throughout your career. And it's something that people need to sometimes realize that, yes, it may look like arguing, but at the same time, it's like critical thinking.
It's a discussion, yeah. And I always compare it, and apologies for American viewers, soccer, if you want to call it, or football.
Don't bow down to them. It's football.
But, anyone who's watching, if you're playing any sport, really, if something goes on or someone gets fouled, the first person who runs over is their captain. And it's like, what's going on here? Break it down for me. It could be a defender who's 20 yards away and didn't see anything. But that's the person who's over there speaking to the referee and doing that kind of stuff. That's what is the same in COD, whereas if something happens, like someone doesn't get on the hill when they should have or doesn't pick a flag, that captain needs to go, right, don't worry, we need to do this now. But in COD, it's like split-second decisions.
Yeah.
Not kind of 20-minute talking about it. So I think it's just experience. And that's why, if someone was to say like Slasher was going to be the in-game leader of Envy, it would just seem weird because he just hasn't been there as long. That's why, I completely agree. JCap should be that guy to kind of let everyone know if there is anything that's going wrong.
Okay, interesting. Well,
going right.
We're gonna, I think, take a quick commercial break. We've been live for an hour, and I have run out of liquid, and that means that symbolizes the break. So we're gonna go to a quick commercial break. We're gonna continue to talk about RosterMania when we come back. We'll just go away for a couple of minutes. Obviously, remember, we're so thankful for our sponsors, G Fuel and Scuf Gaming. They allow us to do this weekly. And obviously, if you're ever using their products, obviously be sure there you see it by Momo. You see him.
I'm on the watermelon.
Oh, he's on the wall. Oh, okay. These are the new flavors. Be sure to use the code STIKS for 10% off your G Fuel and 5% off your Scuf Gaming products. There we go, Landon. On cue.
I was ready.
And we will see you straight after this quick commercial break. Thank you so much for watching.
Twitter's questions. Boom.
Just boom.
That was my.
And we are back just like that. And I have magically acquired. I'm like just magically acquiring this liquid. But if you didn't know, if you've just joined us, we are actually doing a Scuf giveaway courtesy of Kingdom. If you want it signed by him as well, you can have that as well.
It's regardless. It's all right. It doesn't matter.
Okay, well, cherish it. I mean, that could be valuable in so many years. But if you want to enter, hopefully someone will thankfully put the link in the description or the comments, even what I'm on about, and basically click that link, and basically gives you a list of basically a to-do list, if you will. The more things you do, the more entries you get into the giveaway. It ends Wednesday 5 Eastern or 10 p.m. British summertime, so you've got from now until then to enter if you are watching on YouTube as well, so feel free to. But I was just thinking, we've been live for an hour and we're like, let's take a break, but I don't think people quite realize how long you guys as casters are live during the CWL, because you go the entire series.
You especially.
I watch it. I know, and sometimes when there's technical difficulties, you and Machine just sitting there like, how are you today? Like,
it's a good job that me and Machine can literally sit back and just have a laugh. Like, that's when you need to get on with your co-caster, which. Yeah. It's been a blessing in disguise, really. But I think the longest stream we did was 10.5 hours straight. Wow. But I know there is things in place now. It's going to be better for you guys and for us guys.
Okay. Because at the end of the day, the last thing we want is one of you on stream just going, this is too much. It's too much. I need a break. I need a break or something. But no,
there was one time where I was watching the EU. And it was like after a long, I think it was like maybe day 2. Like, so you guys were a little bit tired already. And it was a long day, and you guys were on Redwood. And I forget who it was. There was like someone was throwing a frag out of the water.
Yeah.
That was like the funniest moment.
And it just like dribbled. It just like went bloop, 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 bloop. But the thing is, like, if you've been casting for 8 hours and you see something like that, and it's not really that funny, and it's not like we're going insane. But you've been watching the same like so high paced game mode to see something so stupid. You like sometimes we just lose
now,
it. But, yeah.
In saying that, hopefully you can remember this so I don't look like an idiot. But I think the highlight of the EU CWL for stage 1 has to be back when I think it was XL taking on, I can't remember who it was, but is Zed's emblem. His custom emblem. I think, if I remember correctly, it was on Fringe. I can't remember who they were playing.
Yeah,
but the whole studio just cracked up. And you were sitting there just wetting yourself. And it was just so perfectly acceptable because of the moment.
Yeah, it was. There were certain things that were put on the weapon, and it kind of set a bit of a trend, and other people were doing it. But I mean, we didn't want to. You can have fun, but we didn't want to. Put like discouraging things or personal things on there. So again, as a caster, I sit back and I laugh, and then all the important people behind the camera basically decide what, talk to players and say, you can do this, you can't do this, or whatever. But I think it was just, I think he started drawing pictures of other players on his weapons, or he started putting like Pulse's record on there, getting into their heads. I think it was like a bit of like mental game. But yeah, again, it's just something you don't expect. You see it, and it was just hilarious for us guys as well. We couldn't concentrate on the game. It was XL versus Pulse. That was it.
Okay, there we go. I mean, it was just so mind-boggling. I hope we get some more moments like that in stage 2, because I think as you said, it's a blessing in disguise. I think your partnership with Machine works incredibly well, and it's just like the chemistry's just there. It's just natural, and it's just such a entertaining to watch. I think a lot of people have thoroughly enjoyed watching the EUCWL because of yourself and Machine. I think you don't get the credit sometimes that you maybe deserve. But going back onto RosterMania, Landon. We have more. Sir. We have ever so many more questions. If you want to send a question, there, hopefully, I'll tweet it now. Not tweet it now. I'll put it in the comments now for everyone so they know. But Landon is basically
the chat, Thomas. It's the chat.
It's chat. I don't. Well, if they're watching on YouTube, they might still think it.
I'm just messing.
But I'm trying to find a good one. I didn't prep, but here we go. Okay, so how do you think LG will do in season 2 after the changes, Mr. RosterMania? I mean, Landon.
They'll work. Either one, like I said, I go by either title, Thomas. It's fine. Either one works.
Oh, sure. I mean, you had this whole midlife crisis last week. I know. Anyway.
It's crazy. But yeah, I mean, obviously the Luminosity roster has not been officially announced yet. So we can't say this is the roster moving forward. And as I say this, like, watch it just get announced or something like that. But still, the roster for right now, as we know it, is going to be Saints, Replays, Study, and TP. Not two replays or 2 studies, but obviously, like I said, 4 players. The original team before they had TP, they were actually practicing with Assault. It was kind of funny to me because it was like I watched one of their first scrims whenever they had Assault on the team, regardless of TP. And because for those who don't know, Study is a hardcore AR, Replays is the hardcore AR for the old Luminosity team, and Assault was the hardcore AR for C9 Eclipse. And for those who don't know, basically, you really have to have one hardcore AR player. Preferably you have like a secondary AR player. Like you have to have that second and third player besides like a hardcore sub and an AR have to kind of be a little bit transverse, like be able to use both the sub and AR at different times. And the fact that 3 of them had never really ever used a sub in actual games before was like, this is going to be interesting to me. So they get in the first game and they're like, Replays, how about you run a sub? And he's like, I've never run a sub on this map before. And it was like, why would you even like pick like a great? I mean, Assault's a fantastic player. I think Assault is incredibly underrated for those who don't know of him, but he is incredible. And it was really funny to me to kind of see them realize certain things that were going on. But I think the addition of TP was really good, at least for right now. Of course, it's not official yet. I think TP is going to bring a good presence to this roster. I think TP will also kind of keep the guys in check in some ways. Replay is coming from Advanced Warfare. Guy has experience in kind of leading a younger group of guys. He was on that team with Hook, Temp, and Slasher heading into MLG World Finals. Study has a little bit of a case with working with younger players over on Justice for a short time. So I think in some ways these guys have a little bit of leadership. The only thing that does worry me at times could potentially be in some cases they're slang because granted, TP is going to be more of an objective player. He's not that same Slayer. Replays has lacked for Luminosity in some ways. I think he was one of the lower KDs along with Spacely in the regular league. And having your AR player have such a low KD kind of worries me a little bit. But I think as far as their chemistry, I think it'll be fine. I think one player you're really going to have to look out for is Study. I mean, you've seen many times if you were a fan of Team Liquid heading into the regular season, heading into their matchups, even for qualifying for stage 2, even in the relegation, there were countless times where he would rage quit his stream, being so frustrated with the team not working out. And I like Study a lot, but it's just the one issue with me that seems to arise with him is that whenever he's on a good team, whenever certain things are going right, and then just one thing clicks off, he'll blow up. And a lot of the time that really does affect your players, a lot of people around you, because having a negative person in your call and your team, and I know even Momo can speak of this being on a roster, being on a team before, being a competitive player.
Watson.
Yeah, there you go. Momo can really bring down, a team that has that capability, but we'll see how it goes. These guys are all veterans of the scene. I think they can do some work if the roster does happen. Like I said, it does happen. So.
Okay, so let me just recap. So TP Assault with Replays and Saints, was it?
Saints, Replays, Study, and TP is the rumor.
Oh, where did I get Assault from?
Assault was the original pickup. Then they no, probably not Assault.
I was gonna say. Okay, so them like DT are playing musical chairs, and obviously we are purely speculating because for all we know, they could turn around and be like, "Hey, no, we want you back," or "Hey, no, we want
who knows at this point."
Man, I mean, it's interesting. This, I mean, Momo, have you been through? You must have at some point been through this exact example where you've maybe been dropped, or you're maybe planning on dropping a couple of players, and there's a whole you don't know who's going where. Am I going to this team? Is this person teaming with me? Am I teaming with you?
Like, I think, yeah. I mean, we've all been through it. Even if you've been on the, amateur scene, pro scene, or anything, there's always that time where you think, hang on, am I going to get dropped here? Or you're speaking with one of your team, like, should we drop him? And it's like, it's really awful, I think, because I'm one of those people who really gel with my team outside a game. And that's why I'm still so close with them now, even though they're still playing. Like, I used to, we'd just go for meals together. We'd hang out. We'd play other games as well. And I think that was the hardest, because dropping someone, it was like, I still really like you, but
I'm going to have to it's like a relationship with you. I'm like,
you.
It's not me, it is you, and you've got to go. But I never really I hated dropping people. Generally, in my kind of career, and I think this in a good way, is I always made a team. It got kind of good, and then the best player left, and we got another.
Oh
player.
no!
So
you like trained them up. You were like the trainer, and they moved on. And then
I honestly, I'm not going to name drop, because I always get called up on it for doing it. But there's so many people that I've teamed with and come through with, and they all go on to bigger and better things. And I just think I'm just that stepping stone between. I think I just discovered that. I see them early. That's what I see.
You are the talent spotter.
I used to say it, yeah. I mean,
you should be a scout.
It's been said before. But I think they outgrow me when I was a player. I was always kind of like a, I don't know, top 6, top 8 player, if you like. But people kind of came in. We did so well, and they got a better offer. An example now. Look what, I don't know, Watson maybe. He joined Exertus. He's got in a league, and he could find himself on a better squad. It will always happen. Team or players will always stand out, and you've got to not hold them back sometimes. The best example is Formal. He literally grew through the end, and you can't hold him back. You can't kind of say, no, don't go, because he has the talent to be on that best team. And I think it's horrible to kind of go through that, or to release someone or be released. I'll never kind of forget when I knew it was over for me. I was like, it was Advanced Warfare. I was like, team's not doing well. I was in Aware at the time with PT, JT, and Watson. And I could tell, like, I wasn't performing. And I was like, this isn't working. And Joe from, who's he playing for now? Splice,
yes.
He actually replaced me. And that's when I thought, screw it. I'm being a caster. I'm done. I'm done with this.
You couldn't put up with it anymore.
No, and I honestly think, like, at the time, because I got on so well with the team, again, I gelled really well with my teammates when I did. I kind of just thought, I don't want to team with anyone else. Like, I really got on with them. So, I'm friends with so many people within kind of the teams now. And it's good. Like, the best decision I ever made was to become a caster. And I will always stand by that.
Okay. That's very insightful for anyone that obviously wants to, basically be the
easy this way. I don't have to scrim. I can just come home and don't have to scrim. But I did put 6 years of my life playing so many hours a day. I think sometimes it does outgrow you. You want to take your paths, but
I think it's a fair comment to say that without that years of practicing and being obviously a competitor, you wouldn't have had such a kind of easy route, if you will, into casting at the same time, because of obviously the personalities and stuff that you get to know, the organizations as well through competing. What's obviously another massive thing in esports that something that I've learned is you have to network. You have to get to know people. Just, you can't shy away from people. You have to get out there, put your name out there if you want to be someone, if you will. But back on topic with roster changes, this is something I want to go through to both of you. Let's go Momo first, then Landon. Out of all the roster changes, both NA and EU, I know this is kind of hard to say, with some still going to obviously potentially happen. Which team has made the best roster changes? This is coming in from It's Caustic.
Great question. Fantastic question. I've got to say, that's an awesome question. I think the best roster change, I don't think any EU team has got substantially better. That's the one. Okay. I think they may do in time, but
at the moment, is it too hard because of obviously that chemistry and sorting out?
It's a name on a piece of paper, but I think the I'm thinking of Apathy, Envy. Is that right?
Apathy, John Envy, yes.
Apathy, John I can't even
J-Cap
J-Cap
and
and
Slasher.
Slasher. I think
correct.
it's kind of putting 4 huge slayers together. I've always been a bit of a fanboy of John from kind of Black Ops 1 days. He was
Fear
kind of
John.
yeah, exactly. Like he just kind of ran around and killed everything. Apathy, I was a huge fan of when he was on Liquid. I was a huge fan of that whole team. Actually, I was a very much that kind of and watching them. I think that could be an amazing team because Slasher. I know I've just said the whole team, but Slasher, J-Cap, role as well. Slasher is that quiet player, which I think he could get on pretty much any team.
Okay, Landon, same question.
I mean, to be a little bit different, I mean, I comment on EU, but I'll mostly stick with NA right now. I think definitely 2 teams who are in my head is obviously Envious. I mean, the main one. I think Complexity also had made some really good moves. I'm not going to go on this for a super long topic, but I think Complexity did a great job of realizing what was kind of messing around with them a little bit and kind of fixing on the roles. Because in some ways, like everyone knows this, the role switches between Parasite and Ricky throughout the season. Parasite wanted to be a hardcore AR, wasn't really a big fan of the sub. Nameless wasn't really meant to be a hardcore AR player, but ran a scythe anyway. I think it was really good for them to kind of pick up a hardcore AR player because there were so many good AR players coming, out of that relegation and team, and players who weren't actually in the regular season. So, in my opinion, I think Complexity had a fantastic, at least. Not saying that they're the best team now or that they, massively improved, but I think as far as their roles, they realized what was really going on with them, and they picked up and they filled out the roles. So now Gunjar is the main AR player. That fixes Nameless's role. They get rid of, not saying they get rid of Parasite, but that kind of frees up, Ricky to go back to more of a, regular style. They switch back to the regular specialist. Miracles is now the main sub player. Ricky can kind of translate 1 and 2 because that's always what he's done. And like I said, Nameless is now the secondary AR, but also can run a sub on certain apps. If you're playing like on evac, you need 3 subs and stuff. So, as far as like regular roster changes, I think definitely Envious is the better team now. But I think as far as roles go, I think Complexity really, really fixed a lot of their issues because a lot of the time they were the team who was doing their best to keep the tacticals in. And everyone knows that's a very hard thing to do is when you're coming into a game realizing that you're not the best slaying team, that you're in some cases the underdog in every game that they came against in most teams. Now that they have that little reassurance as, we can actually run with these guys now. We have the slaying presence that we need now, and Gunjar definitely provides that. So, I'll go and say I'll say Envious, but I think Complexity in their own regard definitely did some big changes, which I'm a big fan of. So
okay, from my point of view, at first I was very much reserved about this Parasite move, but considering typically Parasite, I think from Complexity's point of view, has been playing a submachine gun role, and I honestly would have thought Gunjar would have kind of transitioned better with replacing Nameless, but it is what it is. Just to kind of voice my own opinion, I'm actually going to agree with Impregnated Cow. Yes, that is someone in the chat saying Splice. Although I am a big fan of what Vortex and Hawkeye did for them, I'm an even bigger fan of them bringing on Joe and Rated for stage 2. And I'm honestly very intrigued now to see this roster go against Infused and Millennium. I know this is more on a smaller scale compared to maybe some other like North America, etc. But in terms of what they've set out to do, it's clear they've set out like, we need to make a roster change. We want to be the best team. We don't want to settle for second or third or whatever. We want to, be in that grand finals and not have in the back of our mind like, oh, we've kind of already got second. Let's just, do whatever. But I'm honestly backing the Splice team, similar to what you did for stage 1, Landon. I'm a very big fan of how this roster is going to go. I mean, watching Rated at EGL was insane, to say the least. He was very vocal, to say the least, as well. Joe is very reserved, but at the same time, he always just gets the job done. Just incredible player to watch as well. And then Bance, like one of the most up and coming, most talented players out there for sure. And not forgetting how tall he is. He's literally like, I don't know, like Mount Everest or something. And then obviously Josh, who a lot of people were pipping to be, maybe the 5th best player in Europe behind the guys in Millennium. Well, I think after his performance at the stage 1 finals, you could more than comfortably say that, because his role in Splice is much more than simply being that leader, but he's just so aggressive, especially in S&D, just some of the strategies. And I think that's why they won, I think, 2 best out of the I think it was Excel and Infuse. They both went to game 7, but they won them both. And I think for the most part, they won the majority of their S&Ds. And I think Josh was a big influence of that. So I think if this team can kind of lock down who's doing what, chemistry sorts itself out, I think this roster is going to be increasingly good. So it should be interesting to see. But Besides that, I think we have covered most teams. Just checking. I mean, I guess there's one question I could pose to both of you. Where does Aches and TP go?
Well, I mean, I think I don't know really as much of kind of where the space is for them to go, but I don't know what Landon thinks.
I mean, I think maybe most likely LG just because of like what everyone knows, but
yeah,
I mean,
scrimming.
Like, I don't want to say like the most random thing out there, but I want to kind of point this out. The roster known as King Poppy is
Yeah,
very young, and I don't know if Aches probably would never be down to wanting to do this because of how Aches' pride goes. But I think King Poppy, in some ways, when they head into this league, I mean, these guys haven't really played that much. I think the most experienced player on this team is definitely Royalty. I've heard he hasn't really been scrimming with this team. I've been checking the Reddit every time that they scrim, or at least that they're playing. He hasn't really been playing that often. I think in some ways, I'm not saying it has to be Aches. I'm not saying it even has to be Parasite or anything like that. But I think they will, if things do go bad, look and turn toward a leader. And granted, Aches is out there, Parasite's out there for right now. I'm not saying that they're going to take that role, and I don't think that they would. But if it does come down to it, they are really going to need someone to kind of lead these guys because, I mean, you're a younger team. You got through relegation, which is great. You beat, kind of messed up team with team caliber, not having Gunjar there, but you're in this spot now. How do you run with it? And you're going to have some experience playing. They don't have that right now. How they perform with that, that's the remain to be seen. And we've seen teams like TR, very young players who don't really have a whole lot of experience as far as like regular lands, even finishing second at Call of Duty championships go. And they were able to kind of maintain that. But to me, I'm not sure how this King Poppy squad is going to do. And that could potentially be a roster that, anyone could be on. I was just naming someone off. Honestly, I'm not really sure what Aches does in this situation, to be completely honest with you. I don't think he's that bad of a player. It's whenever he's motivated, it's a very scary Aches. Whenever something's wrong, the roster's not working out, get replaced by Havoc. I mean, I can't really blame the guy for at least performing a little bit different, but I don't really know where he turns from this.
I see the King Poppy is very much like TCM from stage one.
I was going to say this, how well, carry on.
It's kind of the whole, 4 players which probably weren't expected to be there have found themselves there. They're like, hang on a second, we're here, we've got a spot. Yeah, Parasite's free, Aches, like they could try and get someone like that on. TCM went and got Shane, and Shane's been at the top of EU, if you like, much like Parasite has for NA at some points. And I would expect them to make a change before the end of stage 2. So they may not do it straight away. They may, be pally and go, we came in together, we'll go out together. Yeah, but if things don't go well, I'm sure a change will happen with that team.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it throughout the entire of stage 1 where there was teams like CLG and all sorts that were down in, I mean, DT is a good example, how they obviously dropped Happy, picked up Killer, and I think for the most part that actually had a very positive effect on the team overall. I mean, I don't want to get into it, but we see time and time again, these teams have to adapt throughout this season because they may be down in relegation. They were like, look, this is clearly not working. Let's all decide what needs to be done now to move forward and get ourselves out of this hole that we've dug. So, but I mean, another thing to remember, thinking about TCM as well, going back to something I talked about in my video today, back in AW, where we saw all of a sudden TCM with this British roster drop half of it. I think in the end, the only player that actually ended up keeping was Jerd, and pick up Aches and TP because of how influential. Let me start again. Influential. That's Jesus, I've never found a word so hard to say. How influential these players are to a roster. I mean, let's not forget how many championships they've won. I still love the quote that Teep says of like, I've won more championships than this roster or whatever.
Combined,
it is.
yeah.
Combined. So that just blows my mind. But it's going to be interesting one way or another. If they don't get on a roster, it's fair to say that they're going to struggle. We've seen it with Liquid and C9. They really just struggle outside of the CWL in terms of what there was available. But by the looks of things, Activision are improving upon stage 1. So maybe there will be a bit more kind of viability, if you will. But the last question I want to kind of end RosterMania on is more related to the CWL as a whole in terms of we saw OG, Millennium, and Mindfreak all match up with each other at Crown Melbourne. They all came top 3, funny enough. Although I think Mindfreak came joint top 4, but we'll just count it as top 3. Are these 3 teams going to be the 3 teams that come top after stage 2 heading into playoffs?
Oh,
I'll kick things off. Mind Freak, 100% yes. They will win Australia, New Zealand, Oz, COD. I always mess whatever they're stood up. I think Millennium, yes. I think they've changed for the better with Swanee, kind of going more aggressive and kind of really getting involved. And I think they are the best team, even though Infuse finished first in the league. And you could argue some points as well. But I think Millennium, yes. And I honestly, I think all 3 of them are the best in their own rights. But that Rise game, just like, they always push them so much. Like, OG on stage 1 finals, like, they had a really, really shaky start. Like, I'm a bit of an OG fan, so it's like, I want them to do well, but it's kind of like when I see them struggling against teams they should beat, it's like they are definitely beatable, much like Millennium and Mind Freak. But I think OG or Optic have a bit more competition than definitely Mind Freak and Millennium. So so the answer to your question is, I think yes. I think all 3 of them will remain at the top, but I think OG will have to do very well at LAN, but I think they'll dominate online again.
Okay, but going into this stage 2 finals, you reckon they'll be with the number 1 seed?
Yes.
Okay, Landon, similar opinion, or are you going to differentiate?
No, I definitely agree. I mean, ANZ, I mean, kind of expected, like, as to what we've seen, especially at relegation. I was able to see them play on LAN, especially. I mean, you can see how dominant and how above Mind Freak is. It took them a couple of weeks. Like, Orbit was definitely like the major team to be looking out for. Then they kind of, fell a little bit. Obviously, speaking what you guys have talked about with the EU teams, I still definitely think Millennium's on top, but you can definitely see rosters forming who are trying to target for their spot, trying to, in some ways, play similar to the way they do. And it was a major talk at, EU. It was the fact of Swanee playing a little bit quicker, which also provided them a number of different, play styles, because Swanee's now moving forward. He's kind of being involved with the slaying power as well. He's kind of earning those streaks and providing a little bit more slaying presence, which I think has even made Millennium even more. Just a minor adjustment makes one roster that much better. And I think Optic as well. I don't think we'll see the exact same, like, dominant record, like a 20-2 thing out of Optic this year, or out of this season, excuse me. I still think we'll see them be, stage 1 champions. I still think we'll see them at least be in the first seed. But you do have to keep in mind, there are some rosters who are forming who are trying to take that spot out. Teams like Envious, Rise as well, has not downgraded whatsoever. They've been scrimming constantly. I know OG's had some players be, and I think Karma and Crimsix are in Australia still for the longest time. So I know that, like, as far as, like, the regular season goes, as time does progress on, I still think OG will be in the top spot, but I definitely think it will be a little bit closer in record. It won't be OG in, like, week 7 already being guaranteed a spot into the stage, like, or be qualified into playoffs or whatever. I think it'll be a little more difficult for them. As far as right now, I still think that we'll see still see the same teams rise and be at that top spot still. So I still think that Mind Freak, Millennium, and Optic will still be at the top for right now. But that doesn't change any roster changes from happening that could prevent that. So that's something you got to keep in mind as well. I mean, changes and things can come and arise, but I still think for right now, it'll still be the same. So
okay. I mean, I think we have to realize as well, as past goes, like, looking at what the situation we're in at the moment, we've obviously got the top kind of teams within each region not making changes. And we always see kind of the middle of the pack, the chasing pack, make changes. And often or not, the changes may benefit the team, but they don't end up resulting in just all of a sudden knocking the top team off the podium. So I definitely agree with your guys' opinions. I would honestly, I think I would be surprised to see any of these 3 teams not at the top. I mean, I could potentially maybe see Millennium, depending on how this Splice roster goes and how Infused go, because I know Infused were really strong coming into stage 1. Definitely. What are you going to say?
I was just going to say, not to say they're online players, but I think they definitely have more. Sometimes they lack composure on LAN. It's a given. People say sometimes they kind of choke, but online they're really, really good, and they can take down Millennium easily online. We know like Swanee has troubles online and things, or certain players here and there, but I think you're right. Maybe if one slips up, I mean, Infuse could come out with number 1 seed again at stage 2, but.
Yeah, I mean, as we say, it is online. We have to realize, especially in Europe, it's very fluctuating with obviously having to play against on a Spanish host, a French host, whatever. Maybe even potentially a German host if maybe Fabi do pick up this LDLC roster or something similar. So there is a lot of obviously that goes on, but I think for the most part, we'd all be surprised if we did see a dramatic change from these teams being, kind of at the top of their respective divisions and then all of a sudden being kind of pipped to the post by another team. But that pretty much concludes RosterMania talk. To answer someone's tweet, or I can't remember who you were, someone tweeted me about King Pappy being potentially picked up. Again, we don't know what's going to happen. They could be picked up by Denial. They could be picked up by CLG or another team that's obviously didn't make it, Team Liquid as well. So yeah, we don't know. But we're going to now talk about some of the patch notes that actually got released today. If you didn't know, a whole new patch came out, I think 1.09, and there's a lot of changes that you guys will probably be interested to know about. Hopefully, I can get Goldie to post the link to it in the chat so that you guys can see
You got
it.
it right. Good job, Tom. You didn't say
I didn't say comments.
Good job.
I mean,
Well
yeah.
done, Tommy. Well done, mate.
I feel like I've earned a gold medal throughout the process of this show, so thank you guys. I'd like to thank my parents, but
Golf club for you.
oh wow, thank you. I feel like that was so patriotic, like just patronizing me. Like, yeah, well done. We already knew that. But anyway, back to patch notes. I want to start with specialists. Very intrigued to find out both your guys' opinions on some of these stuff from being a caster and having very good knowledge of the ins and outs of picks and bans and so on and so forth. So there's been a lot of changes to specialists. I'm going to start off by talking about Hardpoint, where we have seen a reduction across the board of the rate you earn specialists. What is your opinion on that?
The players will love it.
Okay.
I think the players, they always ban overclock. They always ban, like in EU especially anyway, they get rid of overclock. So I think they will see it as better. And I think it may, I don't know if it's the same on S&D because I've not even looked at these patch notes.
It's just on Hardpoint.
Oh, Hardpoint.
Just
so
Hardpoint.
On Hardpoint, I think, if overclock again is still taken out, maybe we'll see them once a game or twice. I'm not sure.
So specialists are basically going to be less influential.
I think they're going to be less influential, but it just means when you've got it, use it wisely. If you have that purifier or that scythe, make sure you're putting it up in a position, because I think it's going to make it more interesting. Because when we're going to be waiting, and we're going to go, right, player A, they've got the scythe, we're jumping on board, and they've died straight away. What a waste. And it can change the game, or they could do something crazy with it.
Yeah, I mean, surely, Landon, this means that specialists are just going to be ever so more important, especially the one I always think about is Stronghold, Bunker Hill. How crucial is that specialist now going to be? Potentially you only earning it once a game.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be the fact of, when do we save our specialists? It's not like, oh, we have the heat wave, we have the kinetic armor, we have all this stuff to kind of rely on. Granted, that you're still going to be earning it, but it's not going to be, like I said, as rapid. You're not going to have, 3, 4, 5, not 5, but, that many active camels going on per game or something like that. You're still going to have to rely on like I said, like what Momo said, you're going to have to play a lot smarter. You're going to have to realize as the game does progress, and you even mentioned, Stronghold and Bunker being a massive hill, using the purifier, using the sights, you might get that maybe one, if you play really well, twice per game, depending on, what this new patch has allowed. So like I said, it's going to be very, very important. I'm really excited because now it's not like, oh, all 8 of these guys have a specialist. It's now like, it's going to be more interesting to see when a player has the specialist, and you're definitely going to be focusing on that guy to use it. And like I said, you're definitely going to have to see players work on their specialist use now, because it's like, we've got a heat wave. You're not going to have this, much more. You're going to have to use it. And you have to use it effectively, push out of hills, use entry specialists as well, as I call them. And I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really excited about this, as well as Momo mentioned. The players, I think, are definitely enjoying this for right now, at least. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that they're bringing out these patch notes that appear on the face of it, at least, very much dedicated to esports. It's very much like they've seen, time and time again, overclock being banned. So, I mean, obviously, it's maybe a general consensus that they feel it needs to be reduced, but it's definitely going to aid pro players. And as Momo, you rightfully brought up, I mean, maybe they're not going to now ban overclock, and that frees up another ban or whatever they want to do in terms of ban and protect, what's going to be very interesting. Other than the general kind of hard point specialist earn rate going down, there's been a lot of changes to killing specialists in terms of nothing's been affected in terms of the purifier or the Tempest, but Outrider and Reaper, or otherwise known as Scythe, and the Annihilator have had dramatic changes. Now, the Scythe has had the ammo, what do they call it? The ammo count, sorry, reduced from 120 to 100. So that's a 1/6 reduction. Whereas the Annihilator has had a lot of things increased. So is this a sign of maybe we're going to see more Annihilators over Tempest in gameplay, potentially?
I think Outrider is the Sparrow, right? Like the Vision Pulse and Sparrow, not the Annihilator. Isn't that right?
Outrider is the Sparrow and Vision.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You're good. I know.
That may be me getting
that
it
was
wrong.
a test. It was just a test, wasn't it, Tommy?
So I got it, Tommy.
Okay, that was...
I saw the DM in my Twitter. I saw it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, that's me mucking up then. But we could still talk about the Scythe. I mean, that's the Scythe has very much been so far one of the go-to killing specialists for especially AR players that play for them spawns. So same kind of question with this reduction. Do you think this is going to have any significant effect on what players choose? Because typically we'll see maybe 2 players pick up specialists orientated around killing, and 2 pick up specialists orientated around maybe breaking heals, or playing that more sneaky route with maybe active camo or whatever it be.
I'll go for it. Sorry, I was a mile away then. I was going to say that at the Scythe, just think about the amount of times that you see someone run out of ammo with it. It doesn't really happen. He makes 1, 2 kills, maybe 3 if he's super brilliant, 4, and then he dies. If he has 20 less bullets, I still think he's going to make that 2 or that 3rd kill. I don't see the Scythe going away, but whether I mean, I think you were saying Outrider. I was getting a bit confused with it. If that's kind of been buffed, I'm not sure if that will be used more, but I still think the Scythe will be in play.
Okay, Landon?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to at least NA play, for sure, I mean, I was like 65 to 70% of the time, in hardpoint, at least regular respawns, you're going to see, or even in basically every single, respawn game type, you're going to see 3 abilities: Kinetic Armor, Heatwave, Active Camo, and probably a Scythe. If the Scythe gets banned, you see the Tempest or the Annihilator. It's kind of like one of those 2. So when it comes down to respawns. So I think I've been honestly a really big fan of the, kind of targets at the Scythe, at least a little bit. I mean, it's definitely the weapon of choice without a doubt. And I like the idea because they have, increased the ADS speed for the Outrider. And we've even seen certain players kind of experiment with other things. Like throughout the ending of the Call of Duty World League, at least for NA, players were starting to bend over to use something like the Tempest. We've even seen for uplink and stuff. I know H2K was a big team who used to do this a lot. They would ban the Scythe and make players use the Annihilator because Fears is a great Annihilator player. So I'm personally really liking the strategy to ban out something like the Scythe, but I think now you're also going to kind of see teams taking into consideration these other things. I think, honestly, Treyarch is going to kind of look – I mean, they do look at the competitive scene, obviously, for certain things and stuff, but I think once we start to see the Scythe, depending on how used it is now, that bullet or the overall ammo count going down from 120 to 100, granted, it's not as crazy as it may seem, but when you're trying to get clutch kills in the hard point, if you're trying to lock down a certain spawn for your team, or even an uplink trying to shut down a drone carrier, I mean, bullets mean a lot. And if you have 20 less, that could mean a score for the opposition. It could mean hard point time. It could even mean you dying at certain points. So I'm personally a big fan of the Reaper downgrade, but I'm also a big fan of them kind of raising up other things. And we'll obviously talk about what happened with the Firebreak, Heatwave, and obviously the Kinetic Armor and stuff. But I'm personally a big fan of kind of limiting the most popular weapon specialist in the game right now.
Yeah. I mean, as I think Momo you brought up, we don't often see someone completely run out of ammo on the side very often. It's very rare. It's normally a case that they get shot in the back or they get outgunned or something like that. But like Landon said, I mean, there has been an increased rate for Rejack, Psychosis, Heatwave, Kinetic Armor, and Overdrive. So basically, you'll earn these specialists quicker. What is very interesting, because Kinetic Armor, Heatwave, and Overdrive, and even Psychosis are all in there that are frequently used within competitive play. What is just going to make them more kind of appealing towards these pro players for picking them up. I mean, obviously, the one thing I don't like about the patch notes is they're a bit vague. We don't know like the precise timings for. We know it could be like 0.1 second increase. So it's a bit vague in that part, but I imagine it's a reasonable amount to make a significant impact on the game. And obviously they're doing this to balance out the specialists. And especially in the respawn game modes, stuff like Kinetic Armor and Heatwave, although I know Kinetic often does get banned out, it's still going to be interesting to see these specialists in action, especially if pro players now know that they can earn them quicker. They can potentially use them twice rather than only once, especially as we talked about hardpoint. With the reduction of how quickly you earn your specialist in hardpoint, maybe it's actually better to go for one of these specialists because you earn them quicker than a killing specialist potentially. So I think that's quite an interesting point in general. There's adjustments to the Ripper as well, but I think it's fair to say for the most part, the Ripper is never really used in competitive unless it's kind of a bit of a, unless it's, what was it? I think it was FaZe versus someone, the last match of the CWL and Elevate. And it was snipers, shotguns, and the most stupid specialists because the game meant nothing. So potentially that, but throwing over to weapons, I know someone's already put it in the chat regarding shotguns having a buff. We'll come on to talk about that in a second. But submachine guns have had a massive kind of change in terms of the meta. We've seen VMP and Kuda both have nerfs, which means that they basically, in essence, got worse. And we've seen the Weevil, Vesper, Pharaoh, Razorback, and the HD40, what I believe is the supply drop weapon, actually get increases. Now, a lot of people are referring to the Vesper as now being the more viable gun. I wanted to get your guys' opinion on that.
I was playing just before this. I was playing in like some games as well, and I was using the Vesper, and I definitely think the Vesper is back. And some people will think that's a bad thing. Some people will think it's good. I just think it gives more versatility because, the Vesper, I think it's now in between where it was and where it originally was, if that makes sense. So
it's not as overpowering as what we saw, but it's kind of more along the lines of what we see with a VMP and Kuda in terms of overall performance.
Yeah, I think we may see, we'll definitely see more of the Vesper, but I think we'll still see our VMPs, our Kudas, and I just think it's going to make it more interesting, really, to see, a bit of everything rather than 4 VMPs running on evac, for example. So I think it's a good thing, but I definitely think that's the only difference. I mean, I know the other SMGs have had a buff, like the Razorback and things like you say, but I think the Vesper's the big kind of one that everyone's looking at.
Yeah, and Landon, in terms of guns like the Pharaoh and Razorback, I think with the Razorback, it's maybe a case of being quite a low firing gun. And with the Pharaoh, often we see, obviously, the main two bands in terms of attachments is always high caliber and, more importantly, rapid fire, what is mainly what makes the Pharaoh so good. So do you think with the changes, do you think we're going to see more Pharaoh or even Razorback or a Weevil at all?
I mean, I'm a big fan of the Pharaoh, even bigger fan of the Weevil. The buff the Weevil, I'm sure is a ever-going hashtag that will continue to go on for generations. But no, I think I'm not like the biggest fan of the Kuda and VMP. Like I haven't really been actually played Black Ops 3 since the patch has come out yet, so I can't really speak on it. From very maybe 10 minutes of hearing what pro players have talked about the Vesper, like Momo said as well, it seems to be back. I'm not sure if it's on the same level as it was. I would probably assume not. I think, they've kind of realized that it was as good as it was. They're trying to bring it back to that medium length. I do like the idea, though, of them, in essence, dropping down the Kuda and the VMP to kind of bring all the SMGs back to normal, because Vaughn has tweeted out countless times that he wants to make every gun viable. He doesn't want, the BAL and the ASM1, or even in Ghost, the Vector for the most part was like the only weapon that you use. So I'm personally a big fan of trying to make all weapons on the same wavelength. I mean, granted, you're always going to have one weapon that's kind of chosen over another for any particular reason. I like the idea with the subs. I think it's going to take a little bit more time for things to develop, but I think overall I'm a fan of this. I like the idea that the Vesper is now back in some ways, and I don't want to see Search and Destroy players only using the Vesper. That's obviously, if it is back in some ways, you might see players kind of tend to focus the Vesper as a major ban in some cases, and I hope that doesn't always arise. I hope it's kind of, in some ways, like the Man of War, where in the right hands it can do some work, and sometimes and occasionally it's involved with the banner text, but it's not so overused that it's the only sub of choice, for example. I like the idea behind the patch that they've done. It just kind of depends on how it's all executed and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I think if we can get to a point where, in essence, we could see 3 different SMGs used without anything being banned in terms of SMGs, that would be absolutely incredible. And like you said, as past Call of Duties go, there's always been that one specific AR and one specific SMG and even sniper as well that people go to, and we're really seeing a lot of versatility, and it's thankful for the ban and protect, because it means that if there is a clear gun that everyone knows is the best, back when it was the Weevil, a lot of, not the Weevil, sorry, where did that come from? The Vespa. A lot of people would obviously ban it, and then it kind of created a lot of opportunity in terms of a VMP or a CUDA, and we did for a bit see the Weevil and Thera used as well. So if this kind of makes it more balanced, it's great. If this means now we're going to see 4 Weevil, 4 Vespas even, then it's a bit of a downer for me, in all fairness. But talking the same about assault rifles, we've obviously, as you said, noticed that the M8 is clearly the go-to gun. We've seen a couple of XR2s, and the Manowar as well is quite viable as well. But considering that, I think they've done a very good job at buffing the HVK, ICR, Shiva, and MX Grand, what isn't really relevant, but either way, it's still there in terms of making these guns more viable. Obviously, with the HVK, I think it's a case of sprint recovery being increased, aim stability, recoil for the ICR. Shiva has, interestingly, rapid fire now functioning properly. So obviously before it wasn't, but I mean, as we know, rapid fire 9 out of 10 times does get banned in ban and protects. Increase to flinch and ADS for speed of the Shiva as well. So overall, these 3 guns are now becoming a lot more viable. I don't know if you got to kind of test it around with Momo when you're playing GBs, but could we potentially see more of the ICR or the HVK or even the Shiva?
I think the whole idea, and or whoever's done this, we always refer to like Vaughn as doing it himself, but I think he has a huge influence on it. Like it's his kind of playground, if you like. I just think it's to put them all on a bit of a level playing field that anyone has used. But the problem sometimes is, if every single SMG is basically the same, like it just looks different. You know, if they all fire the same rate or kill as quickly, I think there has to be a change. And I like the fact that the Vespa used to be super rapid fire but hard to control. Like then it's a skill to use that weapon.
So it's like high rewards and high risk in certain situations. One gun.
Yeah, good up close, bad at range, and you've got to change it per map, per hill. I don't want 8 weapons that are exactly the same at the same range. And that's not what's been done. That's not what I'm saying. What's good about what's happened is they've tried to make them all viable, but different. And I think we will see more of other weapons, HVKs, maybe ICRs, Shivas, sometimes they get banned, sometimes they don't. But we'll kind of have to wait and see. It's one of those questions we can all kind of ponder on, but I think we will, but we'll just see what the pro players have to think about them.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, they'll develop ultimately the meta based off these patch notes, and obviously we can talk here, there, and everywhere, but they may turn around and be like, well, the Vespa, it still is uncontrollable. Yes, it's good up close, but apart from that, it's not. So potentially, regardless of these patch notes, we could still find out other guns are more suitable, regardless of what's happened. So we'll have to wait and see. Lastly, obviously, shotguns. I know people said it in the chat. They have received a buff in essence in terms of I think the KMR, it says their one hit kill range has increased. Three hit kill range for the Haymaker has increased, and they increased for the Argos for the 1 hit kill range at hipfire. So I mean, we've seen a couple of Arguses, it's fair to say. We have seen a couple here and there, very rare. I can't remember who it was. I believe it was someone
Really likes it.
Yeah, really, that was it. Used to run it a little bit, but it hasn't really developed and spread across teams. So maybe this brings it out, especially maybe in S&D. We saw it a lot back in like BO2, where potentially they'd bring out a shotgun because it was so good at close range and kind of locking down different areas of the map. So potentially it will become viable, but as Momo rightfully said, we'll just have to see what kind of plays out and happens overall, because pro players will obviously suss out what is the best. They know the best. They play the game the most. They should do so. We'll have to wait and see what they kind of formulate in terms of a meta. But we're going to pretty much wrap up the show there, guys. I know it's going to be pretty much a long one of the longest over the last couple of weeks, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. Just before I give Landon and Momo a chance to kind of give shout outs and do their outros, we're obviously doing a giveaway. If you've only just tuned in or you missed when we were talking about it, we're giving away a Scuf One. That's obviously for Xbox One, courtesy of Kingdom. I believe it's being signed regardless of if you want it signed or not. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good thing for the most part. I mean, if you don't like Kingdom, maybe don't enter. But for the most part, I think
You can always scrape it off.
yeah, you can always scrape it off. So if you want to enter, hopefully Goalie can put this in the chat or it'll be in the description below if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching this on iTunes, I recommend you go over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/TheSTiKSLive. You go onto this website and basically there's loads of different things. The more things you do, the more entries you get into the competition. And on Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern and 10 p.m. BST, we're going to announce the winner. I believe it automatically randomly draws the winner. So basically the more entries you make, the more things you do on that list, the more entries you get, and basically the higher chance you have. So
just watch this ad, you download this app, and no, I'm just joking around.
No, it's not like that. It's just
typical.
It's all related to the sticks. Yeah.
Just click a few buttons and hopefully you win a Scuf.
Yeah,
that's what Tommy should have said. No. But for me, I mean, the only things that I want to say is get involved with the giveaway. The CWL, of course, starts tomorrow. So obviously get involved with that as well. If you are going to look, I mean, if you're watching this, you're probably going to watch that. But if you're new to it all, then just enjoy some COD.
Momo, the important question is, I don't know if you know this or can even tell us this. Do we know when the schedule is going to be announced?
As in, what do you mean the schedule?
As in, like
the whole schedule of,
or just for kind of matches? Because I'm really anticipating like who's going to be playing who first week, and obviously it's.
Well, I know who's playing who first, but I'm not telling you.
Oh, okay. Well,
no, I don't. I'm not. I can't disclose. I guess that will be.
That's the giveaway. You get to find out the matches if you click all the buttons.
Big giveaway, like Ed's playing halfway through week 2 or something. Just stay tuned whether you're following I think ESL at ESL COD on Twitter. They usually drop everything when it happens. Or just ESL COD, me, you, whoever. Just get on Twitter and you'll find out when everyone else.
Yeah, I mean we'll definitely be sure to obviously retweet stuff from ESL COD and spread the word for anyone that doesn't know. I mean, it'll obviously before everything goes live. I believe that ANZ actually kicks off within a couple of hours, maybe like 4 hours or so, and then Europe is still running at 4 p.m. Central and 3 p.m. BST, I believe.
I think everything for now is the same as it was.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whatever time you used to tune in for stage 1, tune in same time, and there'll be everything there for you, and you'll see Momo's pretty face next to Machine, as always. But Momo, I'm going to let you do your outro now. You may shout out anyone you'd like, and you have a moment of kind of free speech.
Oh, have I got the power right now? Jeez,
yes.
I feel very
responsible. Mute ourselves. Tommy and me had to mute ourselves on this.
Okay, so the power is in my hands. I just want to say thanks very much for the sticks for having me on. It's been a pleasure. It is now 1 a.m. in Germany.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on, pal. We know it's late.
Luckily, my sleep schedule is okay. I usually get up around 2 p.m. But, shout out to the sticks. Tune into CWL. Enjoy some COD. Get involved. You can watch it on your PlayStation 4. You can watch it on Twitch. Anywhere. Like, there's so many places you can do. And I've not really any shout outs, just a massive shout out to the COD community because it's getting bigger and better. And I promise you, and I hate kind of announcing an announcement and all that kind of rubbish, but it's getting better. Like the things that I get, like emails and stuff like behind the scenes, it's like, oh, this is good. There's
a lot of people working for like a good cause.
Exactly. We're at the very, very start of a massive, massive thing. And who knows where we will be in 2, 3, 5, 10 years time. It's going to get bigger, and just stay tuned.
Nicely done. Yeah, and you can obviously follow Phil at Phil Witt, but I think it's with a 7 rather.
Phil with 7. Machine mocks me all the time on Twitter.
And also, I think it's worth shouting out your YouTube. I know you've been grinding YouTube recently. Been putting out some really good content regarding your trip to Germany and your adventures. It's really nice to see a kind of an outlook of a caster's kind of day and what you get.
Yeah, so I mean behind the scenes, if you want to know anything. To plug my own stuff, literally, whether it's Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, anything you can think of, it's all the same. It's Phil with 7, Phil WHI. It should be a T. I wanted it.
MySpace.
I'll get it. I will get it.
MySpace.
Oh my god.
MySpace. My MySpace throwback.
That is like Phil's determination this year to get that T and just be done with it. But Landon, as always, outro. Go.
Guys,
go.
Your dude, your bro, your pal, your man, your ally on the internet. Guys, thank you so much for tuning into the show today. Myself and Tommy and Goalie always appreciate everyone who comes out and supports the show. Major shout out to the Six fan. Let me actually refresh the Scuf one giveaway really quickly. We are at a total of 836 total entries. That is incredible. Thank you very, very much. Like I said, if you are on YouTube, if you are on obviously Twitch right now, and obviously listening on iTunes, make sure to get into it as quickly as possible, because most likely by the time you're listening to this, you don't have a whole lot of time left. So make sure to do that. If you guys want to, feel free to subscribe to me. You can just look it up, Lando COD on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter there as well. Roster changes to come, Call of Duty World League to come as well, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. Massive thank you to Thomas for being here with me, Goalie as well for producing it, and obviously for Momo for coming on it. It's been a fantastic time as always, guys. So cheers, as the Brits would say.
Yeah.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers.
And you can mod me in the chat if you would like. It's Phil with 7.
Yeah, go ahead. Do it.
Or unfollow me on Twitch, Phil with 7. at least everything's the same for me. That's the one thing.
That's the one great thing about Phil. You can just find him on any platform with the same thing. But no, thank you very much, guys, for watching. This has been episode 86, I believe, of the TheSTiKS main show. So we're ever so closer getting to 100, and maybe we can do something really amazing for that. If you've got any suggestions, obviously let us know down in the comments or in the chat. Thank you as always to Landon, and as always to Goalie for his massive efforts in the show, and obviously Momo for coming on. We'll obviously look forward to you and seeing you tomorrow casting alongside Machine in the EU CWL. That's pretty much going to do it, though. Thank you so much. Remember the giveaway if you want to enter. Hopefully someone will put some in the chat, or it's in the description if you're watching on YouTube. As always, though, I love you all. Use code STIKS for your G Fuel and Scuf products. Q. There we go. Lovely stuff.
Green wall, baby.
I feel like I'm missing out here, but no, thank you so much, guys.
Baby.
Oh my God, he's got it all. He's just got it all.
Phase up, baby.
Oh my goodness.
That's all I got. Sorry.
Is that it? Okay,
I've ruined the outro. Go on.
It's all right. It's all right. We like spontaneous, but no, we'll see you next week, same time, hopefully with another amazing guest. Thank you so much for watching, and good night.